Okay, with all this brouhaha about illegal immigration in the USA, amnesty, open borders, um, you know, I don't know. I'm just kind of frustrated that Americans are so have become so indoctrinated, ill-educated, undereducated, entitled, ignorant, stupid. Um, you know, about the whole issue and knowing how the law works, because that's, I'm a Gen Xer. Excuse me, I'm a Gen Xer. I think I was the last generation that actually had to do critical thinking worksheets, right? um I was very privileged with the opportunity to uh go to Japan and live and actually work. uh Appeared on TV in Japan, taught English, trained, was able to teach martial arts, Thai boxing specifically. In the early 90s, Japan offers, they may still do, Americans a 3-month tourist visa, which means, you can hang out in Japan for up to 3 months, 90 days, and just tour the country, sightsee. Yeah, I was able to, through a friend, the people that invited me there, I was able to kind of work under the table. Yeah, that was illegal, more illegal on them than it was on me, on the company that let me work there. So I'm well aware of that. And their main thing was just don't get hurt on the job. So I was able to earn a little bit of money. Anyhow, my specific situation with dealing with the Japanese government on their immigration and travel policies, and I think I mentioned this in another video, but I'm going to be a little bit more specific, is that when I was leaving after my 3-month stay, I was in line. They check your passports. In line to get to the gates. And the immigration person, whomever, looked at my thing. I guess they called somebody. Looked at my passport, and they called somebody. And because I misread my flight date, my itinerary, I was late by one day. So I was supposed to leave the day, the day before, to technically be within that 30-day period. So I was pulled out of line by an official, a lady. She was pleasant enough, but I was asked, we got to talk to you, and I'm like, oh. So, and again, I'm just in time for my flight, and this is all before. This is way before 9/11. This is like 1992. Okay, and I'm pulled out of line. I'm being brought to this office, and there's another couple in there, and I don't know if they're American or European, but they're Westerners. And my understanding is that they had been there for 5 years, teaching English, which, and there's jobs like that in Japan, and usually jobs, menial jobs, service jobs, stuff like that, are usually only reserved for Japanese/Japanese citizens, right? And you can't get Japanese citizenship if you are a ethnically Japanese person. But anyways, I guess they were in the same situation I was. This couple, they had, overstayed probably by a couple of days or a day. I don't know. They were not that specific about it, but they were being detained too. Now, the official, the lady that pulled me out of line, she spoke some English, right? Her English was not, it wasn't like real fluent. And come to find out that the couple, although they had been there for 5 years, didn't speak Japanese. I can't imagine such a thing. I couldn't go someplace and live there for that amount of time and not be able to understand what's going on around me. That just doesn't make sense to me. Never has. And I'm pretty good with languages. I mean, you need really about 3,000 words in any language to be able to communicate. And it usually takes 3 months with diligent study, depending on your aptitude. Anyways, And I was really there to learn the language, right? I wasn't there to womanize. I wasn't there to party. I wasn't there to just be an idiot American. I was there to actually learn the language. Anyways, since the official didn't really speak very good English, I politely asked her if it was okay if I talked to her in Japanese because I did not want to insult her. Japanese culture is kind of it's almost the opposite of ours. It's very there's a you have to show respect. It's it's shame and honor, not guilt or innocence. So I politely, not to insult her, I politely explained my situation in Japanese, that I just misread my itinerary and, I'm sorry. Very important when there's an infraction, car accident, you break the law or something like that in Japan to apologize. Apologies go a long way in Japanese culture. Unlike the United States, it's opposite here. Apologies is an admission of guilt. It's interpreted as, so that's why Americans, Westerners, having a hard time to just say I'm sorry, which in my life experience, in any culture that usually goes a long way, right? Even if whether it's your fault or not, right? In many cases. But anyways, I'm explaining my situation, was very polite about it. Use the polite form when speaking, not the colloquial form, no slang or nothing like that, and apologized. I still had to pay a fine, which was basically all the money that I had saved up and made while I was working under the table over there. That's karma for you. But the couple was kind of looking at me gobsmacked. Their jaws were open, looking at me as I'm explaining myself situation in Japanese, and they were kind of expecting me to try and interpret for them, but I was really only concerned because I was about to miss my flight, right? And then I would be more late, right? My friend had already dropped me off and left. So I was trying to make my flight, 15-hour flight, and so I didn't want to insult the official any longer by assuming that she could not speak English well enough to speak to this couple about their situation. So there was kind of a tenuous situation there, because I had to look after myself. I'm like, I got to make this flight. I don't know, but y'all been here 5 years. I don't know what your excuse is, right? I'd only been there 3 months. Long story short, the lady ran with me down the corridors to, just make my flight, just make it. They were closing the doors and I was able to get on. So, when you go to other countries, you must respect their laws, and you must respect their customs, and you must, even now, Kyoto has a problem with foreigners, taking pictures without asking permission of the geisha and the maikos. The geishas and the maikos, the maiko is a geisha in training. And they dress very elaborately and are very pretty in their kimonos and their hair done up and the makeup and all that. It's very elegant. And parts of Kyoto are actually off limits to foreigners because Westerners don't know how to act. Westerners don't know how to, they have a sense of superiority. They have a sense of entitlement. They don't do any studies on the culture, before they go. They just go and then they think they can just, be Westerners, right? Bold, brash, rude, loud, obnoxious, ignorant in general, right? And so even right now, there's places that have been off limits because our foreigners don't know how to act. So I don't know why people, even Americans here, that are born here or naturalized here, have lost their minds. I blame it on the No Child Left Behind. I knew what that was. I was married to a teacher at that time with the public schools up here. And she was just beside herself because she was mandated to basically teach to the test. So these children, these last two generations after me, I'm Gen X, like I mentioned, weren't taught civics, government, history, American or world. They were taught to the test. They didn't have critical thinking worksheets, or that I know of, right? And I was a super simp back then, so I was helping the woman I was married to raise her two kids. They were actually in the post, so they're millennials, and they're right in the cusp of all. They were in the middle of all that, right? So I don't know how they're faring, and they're in their late 20s now, I believe. But oh, lastly, I'm gonna end this with and I mentioned the situation in a previous video. As I was way into the club scene back in the day, and I wanted to see the nightlife in Japan. I like house music, like going to dance, and there was a club called Ku. We watched Japanese TV in this household, and they actually did a little short stint about Ku, that club I used to hang out at. And it was very popular, very famous, really good music. Dancers, I thought, I was pretty good at dancing, but no, I forgot that Japan is a hop, skip, and a jump from Hawaii and California. So, they were up on all the styles, the latest dances, break dance and all that at the time. There was really good dancers out there. And the music was dope. Anyhow, I ran into these dudes, these, other black dudes, black American dudes. They all had little Japanese girlfriends, and I was hanging out with them. They were being loud and rowdy and niggerish. They were teaching their Japanese girlfriends, very bad English. It's kind of disgusting in a way. But anyways, their thing was they were kind of stuck because they had way overstayed their visa time. Like by years. One of them had been there 5 years. Another had been there 3 years as I was talking to him. And so they were stuck, meaning that if they tried to leave the country, buy a plane ticket, use your passport, they were probably going to get put in jail for that. So they were kind of stuck. So they were stuck in Japan illegally. I hung out with them one night. Going club hopping, they were knocking over bikes and things like that, just being completely disrespectful, which was appalling to me. And I quickly ended my association with those people that evening. I'm just like, you know what? Y'all here dirty. You're doing fucked up shit. You stand out like a raisin in a bowl of rice. What the hell, And you will get arrested for doing that kind of stuff, and then they're going to find out your status, and now you're really fucked up, right? So I had to leave them alone, right? Yeah, but that was an example of, kind of what I'm talking about when I was seeing people not knowing how to act when they're in somebody else's home, somebody else's country. And it's just, again, with the Western couple not at least learning enough survival Japanese, not knowing enough to apologize for an infraction like that. And then these Negroes going around, tearing up stuff and being loud and obnoxious. And like I said, just plain niggerish, right? And in somebody else's country, right? Overstaying a visa where if you do get picked up by the police, they're not playing, right? We play too much here. Well, now people are getting upset because things are getting cracked down, but we seriously play too much here, and that's why things have gotten the way that they've gotten. The United States is extremely entitled because we essentially, unlike Europe, Canada, we're at odds with Canada right now, and we're definitely at odds with Mexico and kind of have always been, but they're not like, we don't war with each other like the Europeans have done over the centuries, right? So we basically don't have any enemies to the north. We don't have any enemies to the south. And on both sides of us, there's vast oceans that the enemy has to get to us. Plus, luckily, everybody here owns guns, has access to one. So, the only way that the country could be really taken down is from within. And I'm seeing it from my very eyes. I had a very short good time in the 90s, as race relations between people were getting better, unlike my mother's generation, That generation turned it around for my generation, the Gen Xers, and then all of a sudden, as the Gen Xers are coming of age, now it's people are acting like they just got out off the plantation, when we've got it good, as black people here in this country. So I don't really listen or subscribe to that victimhood narrative at all. Yes, I was raised by a very militant, wannabe Black Panther single mom, but I saw the contradiction when just going to school and the friends that I had and learning languages and being able to visit other countries. I was treated very, very, very well in Japan, very well. So, anyways, that's my little 2 cents on this current state of the United States in June 2020, 25. And, yeah, just, you know, I just wish people, just like when you visit in somebody's house, and many people don't even have house manners. They go to your house and they put their feet on your furniture, and many people don't have no home training. And that's the problem with the quote unquote free society. Is you're free to be dumb, you're free to be ignorant, you're free to be stupid. But the ignorant, dumb, and stupid are the ones that are easily enslaved. All right. So I'm gonna just leave you with that. Thanks for listening.